What's up to all my freelancers and creators out there? This is Nathan with another episode of Freelance Jumpstart TV. And in this episode, we're going to get into how to create an effective case study. So in my last video, I talked about the fact you need a portfolio. A portfolio is really your opportunity to take control, tell a story, but also to show your value and show your expertise and display the types of work you do, as well as the type of work you want to do in the future. The last point I made on that video is the fact that your portfolio needs to have some element of a case study. And when I say case study, I mean you take one body of work that you produced and you really expound upon it. You talk about certain things about the project, you talk about your thought process, the design process, and you show the end results of what you produced. So in this video, we're going to get into what a case study is and really how to write one. And without further hold up, let's get into it. So when it comes to crafting your case study, think about something that you actually enjoy doing. Think about a project that you had fun doing, but also represents the type of work you want to do in the future. Because the whole goal of the case study is when someone is really considering working with you, they're going to read through it and get a glimpse of what you can do. And at the end of their reading, they're gonna want to, sign up for your service or sign up with you as a freelancer or whatever service you provide. The goal is after they read it, they have insight, and then it's gonna want to spur them on to connect with you. So the first thing about a case study is, as I mentioned, choose something that you had fun doing and write the background. When I say the background, take the time to write about your client. So if you're working with a particular client, tell about their company, describe what it is their company does, but also describe why did they come to you? Why did they choose you? So you may not be able to remember this, because it may have been some time ago. That's why it's important, honestly, to ask the person this as you're in the midst of your process. So you may want to ask them, what made you choose me? And when they provide an answer, that's the type of thing you can use on a case study. So just give background and talk about the company, why the person chose you, and overall the problem they were having that triggered them to contact you. So just following up on that point, after you've written a brief background that represents who your client is, you want to start getting into the problem that they had. So really all businesses are avenues to create solutions for problems that are out there. In its simplest form, if you think about a restaurant, you're hungry and they feed your hunger, or you don't feel like cooking or you don't have the time. So you go out and somebody else provides that service for you. They cook for you and they feed you, in exchange for your money. So business honestly is just an exchange of value. But most of that value is found when a problem is solved. That being said, write out what the problem is. The client came to you for a reason and they had some type of problem or issue. So say the client had a problem with fill in the blank and outline what that problem is clearly. And the reason you want to outline it is as you're telling the story of your case study, at the end of it, you want to point out how you solved that problem. So here at this point, make sure to define the problem clearly and accurately because you're going to point back to it again. This is the middle part of the case study. You want to go into your process. So really you want to describe what did you do and how did you go about formulating an idea to solve this problem. So you can write down any struggles you may have had along the way. You can write down any hurdles you had to get over. You can write down, different possibilities that you had and how you came about choosing, out of multiple options, whatever you want to do, but you really need to describe your design process. So for example, I'll just use myself. If I was working with someone, a web design project, I would go into detail on, okay, the person told me they wanted to build their own personal brand. So there are a couple different options I could have went with. They could have promoted themselves, or they could highlight all their previous experience that they learned on a 9-to-5 job that is applicable to using them in their own personal brand. So those are two directions I could have taken, and I can talk about how I found information or how I worked with the client to get that information, or I asked them certain questions. It just depends, what I want to highlight in the design process. I can talk about what colors I chose and certain systems that I chose to go with because maybe they have an e-commerce store, so I wanted to make sure they could sell. It really just depends. This area is whatever I want to do, but you want to highlight what the design process is, what the overall creative process is, and just highlight whatever you feel is important. So right after the design process, you want to go into the solution, right? And with the solution, you need to answer what that problem is, right? So in other words, you need to talk about, okay, I outlined the problem perfectly and defined it perfectly. Now I'm getting into pretty much the antithesis of what I said earlier. So the reverse, the inverse, the opposite. The solution needs to solve that problem, and it needs to be opposite of what I said earlier. So you write out the solution. You could even go into how you went about the solution and even a little bit of the customer satisfaction of that. This leads us into the last part of an effective case study, which is the result. See, you don't want to stop at the solution. That's great for you to highlight the problem, show the process, and talk about a solution, but you cannot stop there. You have to talk about what the results were. This is the most important part of the whole case study. You highlighting what happened when you did the work. Did it really solve the problem? And then what happened? Did you not only solve the problem, but was there some type of end benefit or end gain that the client received? So go into the results. It's best when talking about results to talk about something that's quantifiable, something with numbers. Maybe you can say the person had, in the case of web design, the results was the person had an increase of 20% more traffic to their website, or the client had 10% more sales, or perhaps the client met with one of their vendors and they saw the website and they were impressed and they were able to sign more contracts, whatever it may be. I'm using web design as an example because I'm a web designer, but it could really be anything. If you're a photographer, what's the end result? What did the client do with the pictures, right? Did they take wedding photos for somebody? And when you deliver the wedding photos, what did they do with them? Did they send them to all their, guests at the wedding? Go into what the result was and what it did. Did they blow up the picture very big and put it over their frame so it's in their home and their future children will see it? If you're a wedding photographer, those are the type of results you have to get into. If it's more service-based, you may have to get into satisfaction, right? The results are a certain level of satisfaction, but regardless of that, you have to talk about what the results are. A subset of results is to get a testimony. Get a testimony from your client. As I mentioned, it's best to get it when you're working with them, to ask them up front to say, hey, do you have any thoughts on our process? Do you have any thoughts of what happened with the project? It was successful. I met your goals. What do you have to say? So you want to add a testimony of that, because you don't want a case study to just be you talking about what you did and talking about results. You need that social proof from somebody else for them to go into, wow, this person really did a great job and I appreciate their work. So really, that's just a testament to who you are as a freelancer and a creative, when somebody else can give you praise instead of you tooting your own horn. So that would be the last subset of results. So really, as a quick review, that's it. You have the background, and then you go into what the problem is, and then you go into, what is the overall process in which you're working to solve the problem. What was the solution? And then finally, what are the results? If you write to those 5 things, then you will have an effective case study. And, it may take some practice and some time to get better at writing these, but the whole goal at the end of it is, offer your services, write the case study, and at the end say, want to work with me, want similar results, contact me, right? And all that will help give you more leads, when people are viewing your portfolio. Thank you for checking out this video. I greatly appreciate it. As always, there are show notes for this particular episode. So you can go to freelancejumpstart.tv/41, because this is episode 41, and you can get those notes. If you're listening on the podcast, I definitely want to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to me. Go to that very same link and, drop me a message, drop me a comment, whatever. And I'd be happy to listen, to meet you, and also, answer any questions that you have. I just love connecting with new people and trying to see if I can serve them in any way, and by answering any number of questions that I can answer. My last point in talking about a case study was testimonies. There's actually a secret on how you can get amazing testimonies that blow people away. So there's a secret to that, but I'm gonna get into that until the next video. So yeah, stay subscribed so you can be notified that of next week. And until the next one, I will catch you later. See ya.